Just hours from now, the Senate will consider blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration.
A vote against President Trump is a vote against border security.
President Trump has grounded Boeing's 737 MAX airplane.
The safety of the American people and all people is our paramount concern.
Police furious with California's sanctuary state policy after an illegal immigrant allegedly stabbed a woman to death.
We are not here to shield admitted gangsters regardless of immigration status.
Within minutes of being sentenced to nearly 4 more years in prison, Manafort was indicted again in a totally separate case.
Beto O'Rourke will reportedly announce his bid hours after a glowing feature in Vanity Fair.
The guy served in 3 unmemorable terms in the U.S. Congress, but man, I'm just born to be in it, said Robert Francis O'Rourke.
Full House actress Lori Loughlin was released, get this, on a $1 billion bond.
All roads lead to narcissism. We've had a narcissistic turn in this country. It's a freaking mess.
And Rob just mentioned it a moment ago.
Why is that?
Today is March 14th, 3/14. It's Pie Day.
That is the reason to be happy. What's your favorite pie?
Pecan with ice cream.
Oh, my dad's too. How about yours, Brian?
Something in a package. I like the
pie in a package.
Yeah, the pie in a package. You know those things you
like
get
from McDonald's?
Yeah, those two pies. They come in a little slot. You know what I'm talking
no
about?
Idea.
No,
what
you get one in a slot in McDonald's.
Ted, do you know what I'm talking about? You know
2 pies in a slot.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's
like a frozen pie that your mom pulls out.
Draw a little picture.
What'd you say? Oh yeah, the Drake's cakes. What'd you say?
That's a cake.
Like
yeah, Drake's or Hostess, yeah.
Okay.
I like
like
those
an oatmeal
things.
cream pie?
Yeah, I don't want a whole pie. I just want a bite.
All right, that's all
anyway,
good.
It's Pie Day. Have some pie.
Some warm apple pie a la mode.
There you go. All right, sounds great. Meanwhile, just hours from now, the U.S. Senate is going to consider blocking President Trump's national emergency declaration.
But even if it passes, the president says he's ready to use his veto powers for the first time.
Griff Jenkins is live down in Washington as the president issues one last warning. Hey, Griff.
Hey, good morning, guys. Think about what we're about to watch. The Republican-led Senate is about to issue a stinging rebuke of the president's border declaration. Well, he's warning senators on both sides of the aisle they're making a big mistake voting against him, and he's found his veto pen.
Anybody going against border security, drug trafficking, human trafficking, that's a bad vote. We'll see whether or not I have to do the veto, and it will be, I think, all very successful regardless of how it all works out.
And yesterday, Vice President Pence toured Customs and Border Protection's training facility in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, sending a message to Republican senators. But as it stands, 5 are signaling they will vote with the Democrats. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Mike Lee. Now, Lee attempted a last-minute compromise with a proposal supporting this declaration, but putting limits on future presidents' use of emergency declarations. It was shot down. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is bringing pressure.
You ought to stand up to fear. Do the right thing no matter who is in the White House. Our Republican friends know the right thing to do. They should not be afraid to do it.
Here's the math. It only takes 4 defections to block, which means they've got 1 to spare. But even if it does pass today, it's clear that there are not enough votes to override a veto, which would be a 2/3 vote. Guys?
That's right. All right, Griff, thank you very much. And the president has made it very clear he's going to veto. When you think about the Mike Lee resolution that he was suggesting, where essentially this time they get through with this particular resolution of disapproval, but then the president would limit his own presidential power. Why would President Trump ever agree to that?
Yeah, it was just such a stupid thing to troll around. But meanwhile, we have this Fox News alert. As expected, and as tweeted out yesterday, or as texted out to a local Fox station yesterday, Beto O'Rourke will officially join the 2020 quest to become the Democratic nominee and the next president of the United States.
He is on the cover of Vanity Fair. There's an article in there that we've all written. It talks about his family, his 3 kids, his wife. When they recognized that he had a spark, that he had a gift, his wife says, we realized he had a gift when we were in Houston. It was the 3rd stop in the Senate campaign, which Ted Cruz won. She said said every seat was taken, every wall, every space in the room was filled. You could feel the floor moving almost. It was not totally clear that Beto was what everyone was looking for, but just like that, people were ready for something.
Just like that. And so Beto, different candidates have had different ways to announce. This is one of the most unique. The fact of the matter is he texted a TV station yesterday down in Texas, KTSM. They received a text, and he said, I'm really proud of what El Paso did and what El Paso represents. It's a big part of why I'm running, and that really tipped off everybody he's running. This city is the best example of this country at its best. So Beto O'Rourke has launched his 2020 run for president. His last run was for Texas Senate, as Ainsley said, and keep in mind he lost to Ted Cruz.
All right, so Vanity Fair has a huge article and feature on him. It's almost as if they helped launch his campaign. Here's a quote from it. He says, I want to be in it, man. I'm just born to be in it. They also point out that he has this huge library, as if it's a big plus that he reads books. We would assume that. And he talks to all the presidential libraries there, and the writer writes, there's always a sense that he belongs on that, as if a book of president's going to be in there. But listen, he's got a lot of charisma. He's got a lot of presence. I know one of the reasons he's not running for Senate is because he personally gets along with Senator John Cornyn and didn't really relish the fact of running against him. But, man, I know Abraham Lincoln did it, but it's very tough to lose an election for the Senate and then try to get the ultimate prize, and that's the presidency.
That's right. He says his biggest vulnerability is being a white man in a Democratic Party that's yearning for a woman or a person of color. He says what's different, he was complimenting some of the other candidates in the Democratic Party in the article, but he says he's a youthful uniter. He's willing to listen and learn from right-wing voters, and he's willing to work with Republicans, he says.
Okay, keep in mind he is from down in Texas. What does he stand for? Well, he has been in the U.S. Congress. He's had some posts in local politics down in El Paso. Here are some of Beto O'Rourke's positions. While the President of the United States is for the wall, Beto O'Rourke is against the wall. He voted against ICE. He voted against Kate's Law. And he voted against the Trump tax cuts. But wait, there's more.
He supports single-payer health care, voted against restrictions on late-term abortions, voted against sanctioning Iran, called law enforcement the new Jim Crow.
And remember, he answered the question, what do you think about a fence, a wall, a barrier? If he's elected, he wants to take up the barrier. He said take out the fence. Right. So, man, you talk about a different policy when it comes to border control. I don't know how many people in Texas are going to feel about that, San Diego, New Mexico, or Arizona. But President O'Rourke would have a free-for-all at the border or good electronics.
Well, you know what? It would be a binary choice. One person, if it were Beto O'Rourke versus Donald Trump is for a wall. Beto O'Rourke wants to take the wall down. Karl Rove is somebody who is watched Texas politics for a very long time, and he thinks it's curious that Vanity Fair came out with this cover with the Fawning Review as well and said this on the channel last night.
I think it is interesting that he has essentially made a pro forma announcement of his presidential candidacy in a magazine with the term vanity in it. The guy served a couple of terms on the city council of El Paso and 3 unmemorable terms in the U.S. Congress, but man, I've just been born to be in it. It's a pretty extraordinary article.
Yeah, he just talks about how as a kid he was a screw up, embarrassed his dad. His dad actually stopped talking to him.
Lots of colorful language in the article, right?
Yeah, no kidding. He said in Vanity Fair, you can probably tell that I want to run. I do. I think I'd be good at it. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to all of you.
Now, let's see what the opposition research comes with other Democratic candidates who might not be impressed with Beto O'Rourke now that they're running against him.
All right. Coming out on the stage on
He says
skateboard.
he doesn't prepare for any speeches.
Yeah, I know. Right. He just goes out there and wings it. He says, and if I'm not prepared, I'll just go up there and introduce myself and then take a bunch of questions.
All right.
All right. So anyway, we're going to have the video. He officially has a video out. We believe it became available just about 9 minutes ago. There's kind of a technological process in converting it from, I don't know, videotape, photomat to something that we can show on TV. We will have that for you in a little while.
We are at Photomat right now. We have a PA.
We got one right out in front.
They're working on it.
All right. Meanwhile, it's 6:10 here in New York City, and Jillian's got a news from the mob.
That's right.
right, good morning. So let's start with this Fox News alert now and get you caught up to speed. A New York City mob boss is gunned down outside his home. Gambino family leader Frankie Cali shot several times in Staten Island. The gunman sped away in a blue pickup truck and is on the run. Now, it's unclear if this was a mafia hit or a rogue gunman. Cali is the highest-ranking mobster killed in New York since 1985, when John Gotti ordered the murder of Gambino boss Paul Castellano. We will keep you updated. Also breaking right now, Robert Mueller's top prosecutor is reportedly stepping down, signaling the Russia probe may soon be coming to an end. According to NPR, Andrew Weissman will leave the special counsel's office and DOJ altogether. He was the leading attorney in the case against Paul Manafort. Today, Congress is expected to ask the FAA why it waited so long to ground Boeing 737 MAX planes. The agency planning to brief lawmakers as President Trump temporarily suspends the jets. The Fed sounding the alarm over new evidence showing a startling connection between the deadly crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. Most airlines with grounded fleets will let you rebook or request a refund. The Powerball jackpot now a whopping $495 million, the 8th largest jackpot in Powerball history. No one claiming the prize during last night's drawing. Those winning numbers, 18, 36, 45, 47, 69, and a Powerball of 14. The next drawing is this Saturday, so get your tickets.
All right. Almost 500 million?
Yep.
All right. That got our sound place. I'll get a ticket, I guess.
All right, Jillian, thank you.
Thanks, Jillian. All right, ICE wanted this illegal immigrant detained 9 times, and now he's charged with murder. The police union leader from that county is furious, and he joins us live next.
Plus, it could be the most patriotic kid ever. The bow tie boy singing the national anthem has officially gone viral. Listen.
For the free.
You got an illegal immigrant and known gang member with a long rap sheet under arrest in California for the brutal slaying of 59-year-old Bambi Larson. She was killed in her own home. It happened in San Jose, California.
She was stabbed to death. The mayor blasting the county's policy of ignoring requests by ICE, which issued 9 detention orders against him prior to her murder and issued a 10th after his arrest.
Paul Kelly is the president of San Jose Police Officers Association, demanding the sanctuary laws be changed. Because of those laws, this guy was protected, ICE is kept at bay, and he goes out and kills. What's it going to take for some reasonable, rational person to allow law enforcement to do their job, sir?
You know, it's simple. If you are undocumented and you are committing violent crimes and you're convicted, you should go to jail, do your time, and then be deported. It's that simple.
Why didn't that happen?
Well, there's definitely a problem with the laws. If the laws weren't as messed up as they were, our victim would be alive. What has to happen?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. What has to happen is, whether it's state laws or county laws that created this, that's our problem, and those need to be changed immediately, and that's what we're asking for.
Well, are you against the sanctuary city theory that if you tell people they're not going to be deported, they'll be more honest about unsavory characters amongst them?
If there is violations in regards to violent crimes, whether it's the sanctuary state laws, whether it's certain county laws throughout California and across this nation, they absolutely need to be deported after serving their time.
If you look at what he's been accused in the past, possession of methamphetamine, kidnapping, burglary, if he were in our country legally, would he be behind bars and would she still be alive today?
Absolutely. This is a problem that everyone needs to focus on. The American police officer is tired of the debate. What we are concerned about is fixing these laws in California and in these counties and across the nation now, before other people in our community are injured.
Yeah, so listen to what they're saying. This is James Williams. He says he blames ICE. He says ICE should have gotten a warrant here. They could have gotten a warrant here. And the county's practice has always been to honor warrants that are issued. Why didn't they have a warrant?
I think it's important that it's as simple as picking up the phone. In January, one of the most current ICE detainers that was on was ignored, and 45 days later, Bambi was dead.
Tell us about her. What do you know about her? Wasn't he stalking her for a while? How did it get to this?
Yes. He was actually in that neighborhood looking at her and others, and he was stalking her. And essentially, what has to happen is these people need to get to the table, leaders, legislators, and seriously talk about what's going on in California in order to stop these laws, because they're not working.
Let me ask something. If law enforcement combines gets together and starts pushing back on their own democratically led politicians in that state, that's pretty much the only thing you can do, because there's no Republican pushback or significant presence there.
Absolutely. What I can say is this. This guy's a monster, and there's absolutely no reason in the world Bambi should have died. There's others that we obviously know and have talked about. Officer Singh in Newman, California. The same thing. In regards to deportation, we're not talking about dreamers and jaywalking tickets. What we're talking about is violent sexual predators that are convicted, and there should be no protection for them in this country if they do that. They're trying to protect
illegals from ICE. That's the problem. That's what politicians are doing, trying to vilify ICE workers and ICE officers instead of vilifying the illegals.
And as a result, this lady is dead, and she leaves behind a son. Thanks so much for joining us, Paul.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin sparking national outrage after being charged in that massive college scam. Tomi Lahren says it's time to stop idolizing celebrities, and she joins us next.
Plus, a college team can't even stay in the state they're competing in, and they can thank Governor Andrew Cuomo for that. You're not going to believe it.
Welcome back to our program. Hey, later today, the British Parliament is going to decide whether or not to delay Brexit, or the British exit.
Yeah, welcome to the story that never ends. Benjamin Hall is live in our London bureau. Benjamin, it's hard to imagine a bigger mess.
And you know what, Brian Stephen Ainsley, things are going from bad to worse. Yesterday we saw members of Theresa May's own cabinet and government voting against her to remove no deal off the table. That was one of the key threats she had against the European Union. Parliament now rejecting both no deal and also her deal, which they have said is some kind of a useless middle ground. So now Theresa May threatening Parliament with a stark choice. She's saying, look at my deal again, or we risk staying inside Europe.
The options before us are the same as they always have been. We could leave. We could leave with the deal which this government has negotiated over the past 2 years. We could leave with the deal we have negotiated but subject to a second referendum, but that would risk no Brexit at all.
The European Parliament are now asking the UK to decide what exactly it is they do want, what relationship they want, having rejected everything else. And today, they made steps forward to decide whether or not they should open trade talks directly with the Trump administration. Today, we will hear another vote in Parliament, and they'll be voting to see whether or not they should extend Article 50, delay Brexit. That means there's every chance from there that the UK doesn't leave the EU. Back to you.
Clearly an emotional issue. Thank you so much, Benjamin.
That's a nice way of saying it's a mess. Like Brian
You
said,
can't even hear her.
Big mess.
Screaming over her.
All right.
All right, it is the largest college cheating scam ever prosecuted.
And it's going to get bigger. Operation Varsity Blues busting the rich and famous in some cases, like, for example, Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin, for paying millions to get their kids into elite colleges.
Here with the reaction to the ongoing fallout is Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren, who's out on the West Coast where a lot of these celebrities live. Tomi, what do you make of Operation Varsity Blues?
Well, listen, in Hollywood and elsewhere in the entertainment industry, when they're not cozying up to or covering up for people like Harvey Weinstein, Jussie Smollett, R. Kelly, the list goes on, they are bribing to get their children into elite universities. And look, this is really par for the course. They don't think that they're going to get caught because these elitists really never think that they're going to get caught. They think that there's a separate system for them, that they deserve it, that they're entitled to this. Meanwhile, they preach all the time about fairness and equality, and they are the moral wardens of our time, and then they do something like this. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but sadly, I am not at all.
Dr. Drew had this to say about the whole issue. Watch.
All roads lead to narcissism. Really, we've had a narcissistic turn in this country for the last 30 to 50 years. When I first started working in a psychiatric hospital, I saw all kinds of different personality disorder diagnostic spectrums. Around the mid-90s, cluster B was all we saw. 100% of the time. Sociopath, narcissist, borderline. And if you are a parent, your child is an extension of you, and you cannot stand to see them uncomfortable. And so you have to save them from every discomfort. What their achievements are your achievements, so you have to make sure they achieve. It's a freaking mess.
Yeah, and tell you what, Tommy, on top of that, the daughter from Lori Loughnan's daughter, when she gets word that, her mom's caught up in the scandal and she doesn't really belong at USC, she is actually on a yacht with one of the USC trustees.
Worth $100 million, the yacht.
Yeah, it really doesn't surprise me at all. And again, this is really bigger than just this scandal. This is just Hollywood in general. We idolize these people. We give them so many passes. After everything that's gone down with the entertainment industry in the last 3 to 5 years specifically, why are we still giving these people a pass? Why are we still idolizing them? Why are we still allowing them also to be the instructors of morality and listen to them on a variety of issues? Again, we need to throw it out. We need to pay attention to average Americans and experts and stop giving Hollywood so much credit because they don't deserve it.
And it's okay to make a lot of money. It's just you can't break the law. You can't think that you're better than everybody else.
Well, absolutely. And again, I think people are starting to see that the layers being peeled back on those in the entertainment industry, and we're going to be more skeptical, as we should be, and I hope that we are.
Now they've got to figure out what to do about the kids in school. That's coming up. Tommy, thank you very much. We'll be watching you at Fox Nation.
Thanks, Tommy.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, USC says we're going to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, because most of the kids didn't know what their parents were up to, so that everybody's in a pickle. All right, meanwhile, a bullet comes feet away from hitting a woman inside her home, but she says she was saved by God.
If it hadn't had the metal there, it might have came on in and hit one of us. It just means he's looking out after us.
Well, there you go. The incredible story of divine intervention coming up next.
And Pete Hegseth just sat down for an exclusive interview with our vice president. What is he saying about the crisis down at the border? Pete joins us live with the answer next.
Morning, Pete. Paul, Tom Tillis, and Mike Lee. Now, Lee attempted a last-minute compromise with a proposal allowing the border emergency to go through and adding separate legislation putting limits on future president's use of emergency declarations, but it was shot down. Meanwhile, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is bringing the pressure too.
You ought to stand up to fear. Do the right thing no matter who is in the White House. Our Republican friends know the right thing to do. They should not be afraid to do it.
Now, it appears a done deal. It only takes 4 defections to block, which means they've got 1 to spare. But you never know till it's over in Washington anymore. There are not enough votes to override a veto, by the way. Rob, Jillian?
Okay, Griff, thank you.
Let's talk about this for a second. Vice President Mike Pence and Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen pleading with Congress to approve the president's declaration.
Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth went one-on-one with both of them in West Virginia. He joins us now with a look at these exclusive interviews. Hey, Pete.
Yeah, morning, guys. I mean, they both went down to the Advanced Training Center for Customs and Border Protection. Clearly a symbolic move to say this vote is about border security. We don't have the wall. Congress hasn't delivered it. And the frustration with the Senate, with both of them, is that they feel like they're overthinking the vote. This vote is about delivering on what is clearly increasingly a national emergency. The vice president, we sat down in the woods, which is an appropriate place in this training facility, to talk about the border wall. This is what he had to say.
The funding the president requested throughout the government shutdown, the funding that we're appropriating now under the law through the national emergency, is all funding that the Department of Homeland Security told us that they needed to construct a physical barrier, a wall in 10 areas of high-density population where the people wearing the green uniforms of Customs and Border Protection have told us that they need a barrier to do their job and to do it safely.
Yeah, guys, go ahead.
I was going to say, you wonder where this message is getting lost in translation, because these are Border Patrol agents. These are people who see this day in and day out saying we need this.
Yeah, it's because it's become partisan. It's become about the president's wall and his priorities and his prerogatives. We had a chance to follow the vice president yesterday, watch him interact with agents who clearly believe we've got this crisis, not just a national security one, but a humanitarian one. But it's become partisan. And we got a chance to talk to the Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, and she said this should not be about partisanship.
Congress continues to fail to act. This is not a partisan issue. It's not partisan to want to protect communities. It's not partisan to want to secure our border. It's not partisan to want to secure our homeland. And yet, in this environment, Congress refuses to act.
That's the frustration, is the emergency gets declared when the folks who get the votes won't do something about it. And if you're the commander-in-chief and you're looking at the problem, eventually you step in.
These 5 are starting to bend, or at least that was the reporting from the last 48 hours, that maybe there won't be a veto here.
The vice president was on Capitol Hill. Yeah. He had a clear message, see on Fox and Friends, a clear message for Republican senators. If you don't vote against this, if you don't vote it down, you're voting for open borders. You're voting to not fund the border wall. Good luck going back to your state and explaining that to your constituents.
Have an answer to that in 2020 or 2022, whenever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
so check it out on Fox and Friends.
Yep, on Fox and Friends. Pete's full interview with the DHS Secretary airs this morning on Fox and Friends at 7:30, and his one-on-one with Vice President Mike Pence airs at 6:30 and 8:20. Pete, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Good to see you. See you later.
35 minutes after the hour, kids in elite schools who didn't deserve to be there, all because their rich and famous parents paid the way.
So here's the question. Should the students be punished? Our parent panel is in studio to weigh in next. And welcome back. Full House star Lori Loughlin is out on a $1 million bond, and she's just one of the high-profile parents charged in the massive college bribery scheme that has also her fashion designer husband and fellow actress Felicity Huffman looking at very serious charges. But what about the kids in this? Our parent panel joins us live now, and that includes author of Disconnected, How to Reconnect Our Digitally Distracted Kids, Thomas Kersting, New York City Councilman Joe Borelli, and attorney Keisha Hebben. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thomas, I'll start with you. What do you make of this? Because as of right now, we don't have exact confirmation for all the kids involved, whether or not they knew about this. So let's start with, if they did know about this, what do you think should happen?
Well, I mean, if the kids know about this, first of all, that's really the parents' fault, that they led them down this road. And in the opening lines of this segment, we talked about the kids really being the victim, and they are. And the problem societally that I see from working at a high school and as a private practice therapist is that there's so much pressure on kids nowadays to get into these blue chip colleges. And it's one of the reasons why we're seeing so much anxiety and problems. I can tell you that from having worked in a high school for so many years. And, I'm kind of glad this happened, to be honest with you, so the cat can be let out of the bag. And those kids that are sitting on the sidelines not getting admitted to the colleges, and meanwhile they have the credentials, perhaps will get into these colleges in the future.
Let's take a look, Joe, at some annual tuition costs for some of these colleges involved, and they're pretty big price tags here. You've got Georgetown, $53,520, Stanford, over $50,000, University of California at Los Angeles, just about $43,000, University of San Diego, more than $50,000, University of Southern California, $55,000, University of Texas at Austin, $35,000, and Wake Forest at $52,000, Yale at $55,000. I mean, these are some hefty price tags, and unfortunately, there were some hardworking kids who missed opportunities to go to some of these schools because these other kids were given those slots.
Well, that's really the problem. This confirms a really nasty idea about class in our culture, in our country, and it's something I think most of us thought and suspected actually happened. I mean, you look at some of those colleges, and they're elite based on the reputation of their student body, and the unfortunate thing for the other students that go to those schools, whether they made them or not because of this whole controversy, is that now the idea of whether these schools are that elite, that worth the money, are even called into question. That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Let's take a look at the statement here from USC that came out, and it says, we are going to conduct a case-by-case review for current students and graduates that may be connected to the scheme alleged by the government. We will make informed, appropriate decisions once those reviews have been completed. Some of these individuals may have been minors at the time of their application process. Applicants in the current admissions cycle who are connected to the scheme alleged by the government will be denied admission to USC.
Keisha, I want to go to you, especially with that last part, with the students who are currently involved in that, process of trying to get into school. Say, for argument's sake, they didn't know about this. They didn't know what their parents are doing. Is that fair to just deny these kids acceptance?
Well, I think that if they didn't know, there's two parts. So whether they should continue to be in the school, unfortunately, I think they should not. If they do not have the qualifications, they cannot score high enough on the SAT or the ACT, and do not have the grades. So it's fair is fair, because there's a criteria that everyone must follow. But I do disagree with the children being victims if they knew about it, because you would know if you didn't score high enough on the SAT, and you would know if you're not an athlete for the coach to be paid money to say, okay, this person deserves, or we're recruiting this student, knowing that it's not true. So I think the students need to be held accountable if they're a part of this conspiracy.
So correct me if I'm wrong. What I'm hearing you say is that my interpretation is it would be hard for the students not to know about this.
Absolutely, because, your child knows. I have a 15-year-old daughter. She knows if she's set for the SAT. So if someone's sitting for this exam, if the proctor's doing all these things based on being paid off, the student knows. And the students know the criteria of getting into these elite schools. So I think if they're 18 or older, they should be held accountable.
So raise of hands then. Who thinks that the school should retest the students and then take it from there?
I agree. That's fair.
That would be a fair way?
Yes.
Okay, Joe, you jumped in first. Why do you think that?
Joe, we would all here, I think, do anything to benefit our children. I think most parents would. But when it starts to cross the line of criminal activity, most rational parents should start to realize that doing these things is actually not benefiting the child, and you wouldn't go to this length. I think some of these kids, the children of such wealthy people would have been just fine if they went to less elite schools that they could actually have earned their way into.
And the big... let me just jump in real quick. Yeah. So the other big overlapping problem here is, let's assume these kids, some of them did know about this. What are we teaching them in terms of their character and their ethics, which are, as far as I'm concerned, two of the most important things that there are that human beings can have.
Yeah, that's true. And final word is what do we tell our kids now? What do we go home and say, okay, this is a teaching moment for everybody because the whole world is watching?
Right. Well, I had the discussion with my daughter last night, and I said, as you know, hard work pays off, and you do not make your way by cheating. Unfortunately, there are people who do that, but look, they got caught, and now their careers are pretty much ruined, so it's not worth it.
All right. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Very good discussion. We appreciate it. Joe, Thomas, and Keisha, have a good one, guys.
You too.
And it is about 15 minutes until the top of the hour, and you know what that means. It's time to check in with Brian Kilmeade to see what's coming up on Fox and Friends. Good morning.
I wish you gave people time to answer if they actually knew what that means at 15 minutes before the top of the hour. Thank you very much, Jillian. And it's good to be able to look at you today, unlike yesterday when I had to stop myself from looking. When I did once, you rebuked me.
It's a fact.
More on that as the show progresses. We'll have that story, and if I can squeeze in some guests, we'll do it. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is going to be here live right in the 8 o'clock hour. Don't miss it. We're going to talk about maybe the next series of interviews, from Bruce Orr that's now out to Lisa Page that's now out, all coming from the Republican House. What could be next out in the public eye, and what will we learn? Also, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich on what he thinks is happening on the Republican side as the president's about to get rebuked on his emergency action at the border. He'll use his veto, but the Republicans trying to send a message to the Republican president. We'll discuss that. Judge Andrew Napolitano on the Paul Manafort sentencing, and what was New York doing, weighing in on it again, where they're not even asked or needed. Tomi Lahren will be here. She was at the border, did a special on Fox Nation. She'll tell us what's at stake. And Dana Lash, she'll be joining us as well. It's going to be a big 3 hours. We're also going to talk about Beto O'Rourke and the Kiss Up article in Vanity Fair. Is he really sent from another planet to save us all? Can we indeed be saved? Do we need to be saved? We'll discuss all that and so much more. If we can squeeze it all in, we'll talk about this whole Jillian catastrophe, as well as urging everybody out there to please get dressed while you watch us. You don't have to be dressed while they talk, but while we talk, yes.
Out of The Godfather, a reputed New York City mob boss gunned down overnight outside his home.
So was this a mob hit? Robert Moses from our Fox affiliate in New York is live near that home in Staten Island. Good morning, Robert.
Jillian, Rob, good morning to you. This killing recalls a much grittier, more violent era in this city's history. Police are still here at the scene on Staten Island, a very Tony neighborhood at that. You can see cops have focused their attention on that area up the hill from where we are. Shortly after 9 last night, police tell us that 53-year-old Francesco Calli, better known as Frankie Boy, was shot brazenly multiple times in front of his home. He was taken to a hospital and pronounced dead. He is a reputed Gambino crime boss. Cops have been combing this area for evidence all night long. Calli may also have been run over by a blue pickup truck in addition to being shot, but so far cops have not confirmed that part of the story. An autopsy is scheduled to be performed today. So far, police have not yet made any arrests. They have also not released a description of who they're looking for. I mentioned that this recalls a more violent time in our city's history. Well, Calli's murder is the highest profile killing of a Gambino boss since Paul Castellano was shot and killed outside of a Manhattan steakhouse back in 1985. Interestingly enough, Castellano once lived about a half a mile away from where we are this morning. Again, no arrests so far in the killing of Frankie Boy Calli here on Staten Island. Jillian, Rob, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Robert.
All right, the air that Americans breathe isn't equal. This, according to a USA Today article citing a study finding that there's a race gap in pollution, and it has social media and Donald Trump Jr. responding.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7 Sirius XM 115. Here with what you're saying online, Carly, I did not wake up this morning thinking we would be talking about race and pollution.
Yeah, that's right. So this USA Today piece is really all about air pollution through the lens of wealth inequality. So it claims that white people buy more stuff, thus creating more air pollution for minorities living in inner cities. Here's a direct quote. It says, Black and Hispanic Americans bear a pollution burden. Non-Hispanic whites experience a pollution advantage, meaning they breathe about 17% less air pollution than whites cause. Well, this piece not sitting well with Donald Trump Jr., who tweeted, just when you thought you've seen it all, now we have racist air. This insanity has to stop. Well, his tweet sparking a wave of negative reaction. One person, Clayton, on Instagram says they are spewing lunacy in their attempt to divide America. Another Instagram user says they must be running out of things to be offended by. And Sel also on Instagram chiming in saying, dear Lord, what will they come up with next? So it's clear that some people think this piece is silly, but the co-author of it says that pollution inequality is very real and it's been going on for about over a decade.
Interesting. Okay, so this next one, Rob thinks that dogs don't have thoughts. I disagree, and everybody wants to know what the heck Beto O'Rourke's dog is thinking.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of buzz around Beto O'Rourke today, as there are reports that say he is ready to make his presidential announcement, and he also landed a very fancy cover, Vanity Fair magazine, but it is his dog in the corner of the magazine cover that is stealing the show on social media. Everybody wants to know what his dog Artemis is thinking, and Jillian, I agree with you. Dogs do have very deep thoughts, I'm sure. John on Twitter says he knows exactly how badly Beto's presidential run will end. Another tweet similar to that. The dog is Beto from the future, trying to warn him not to do it. And lastly, David says, I've made my 2020 decision, and I'm writing in Beto O'Rourke's dog. So a lot of conversation around that cute dog right there.
I think dogs have thoughts. I just think it's very simplistic.
Food.
Whereas I think cats are thinking, how can I kill you and still get fed?
Yeah.
That's what I like about cats. They're evil. All right, and early risers are happier and more successful people. I strongly disagree.
That's really good news for our viewers, guys. So this new study finds that they are happier and successful people. Early birds also more likely to be married with kids, earn more money. They're happy, friendly, and confident, have high-quality sleep, and participate in active hobbies.
How's your high-quality sleep going, Carly?
Well, I think that waking up at 1:30 midnight is more like just this time frame that nobody should ever wake up. And I don't know if that's really early. So this is very good news for those that are starting your day with us. If you're ending it with us, we still love you. That's okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. 6 a.m., 5 a.m. maybe, not 2 a.m.
Yeah. That's just going to bed real late.
That's right.
Yeah.
Carly, thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. It is about 6 minutes until the top of the hour. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
But this video might be priceless. It's a great wipeout caught on camera. We'll show it to you coming up. Welcome back. The ACLU calling on local police to limit their partnership with ICE. The group says more than 9,000 federal immigration agents have access to high-tech license plate readers, which can scan 30 plates per minute, and the ACLU says it gives the feds access to too much sensitive information.
Critics are demanding that a county board stop praying before meetings. A newly elected official in DuPage County outside Chicago says the practice is not inclusive and that ending prayers is the, quote, right thing to do. The county board will vote on the issue at the end of the month.
Church and state. Time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. We start with the good. Freebies and deals for Pi Day today. Restaurants and stores celebrating March 14th, or 314, which is the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. Today, you can get a slice of key lime pie at California Pizza Kitchen, a custom pie at Blaze Pizza, or a cheese pizza at Villa Italian
Yum.
Kitchen for just $3.14. Not
Enjoy.
bad. Yeah.
Next, the bad. A woman calls 911 when she spots a teenager going crazy.
911, what is your emergency?
Yes, ma'am. I'm calling because there's someone up in front of our house. We just drove home, and he's yelling and screaming and, like, flailing his arms.
Turns out the 17-year-old Cleveland Browns fan was just celebrating his team's trade for OBJ.
He went nuts for it. All right, finally, the ugly. A college basketball coach lets all the excitement of a big win get the best of him. Nebraska head coach Tim Miles celebrating a win over Rutgers. We got to go. See you later.